If we look at the EU only, this is the amount of money they are planning to invest on sustainability from 21 to 2030. Did you manage to count all the zeros already? It's 1.75 trillion euro in investment on sustainable solutions. That's amazing for all of us working with sustainability. But what happens is that usually when we have sustainable solutions, we start behaving in a very strange and unsustainable way at the same time, which actually leads to rebound effects. And that's what we'll be talking about now with one example that is actually a real one. A few years ago, I was in China. It was just before Corona. And there was a conference about the cool Earth. So how can we minimize carbon emissions so that we can live within the planetary boundaries in terms of CO2? And I met a guy from one of the car sharing companies that is quite mainstream here in Europe, but also in many different parts of the world. And he was basically making a beautiful sales pitch about bringing this car sharing system to China and really bringing that in scale. And we were discussing that, well, if you look at a car ownership point of view, we actually have loads of resources that we are not actually using. A car, a traditional car, is usually running from A to B for only 2% of the time. It is 95% of the time parked, and the other 3, we are actually looking for parking, but we are actually only moving from A to B for 2% of the time. And then the argumentation was beautiful, right? Imagine if you could have a car sharing system where instead of the car being used by only one person or one family, we could actually have it shared by more people. And therefore, we would need less cars to fulfill the same mobility needs of more people. Brilliant idea. Changing of business models and trying to understand how we can provide access of products to more people at the same time. And then I asked this guy, could you tell me a little bit more about the lifetime of the car when it is in a car sharing system? And then he said, well, you know, if you have a traditional car ownership, usually it lasts for 10 years, so about 200,000 kilometers. But when we put that in a car sharing system, and he said, this is something that we are really trying to work on just now, but the lifetime goes down to only 6 months. When he told me, I said, oh, I'm sorry, I think you didn't understand my question. Let me ask it again. They said, no, that's right. The lifetime of our cars today in our car sharing systems are of only 6 months or 60,000 kilometers. Yes, the cars are used by more people, but people don't really take care of the cars as they would if there was their own ownership. But the cars were also not really designed to be put into this car sharing system. The requirements are simply different when you move from ownership to shared systems. And this actually means that instead of using less cars in car sharing systems, we end up using more cars to fulfill the same mobility needs. And this can be even worse if, and the difference here is, of course, the rebound effect, right? More cars instead of less cars, when the idea was actually to be able to use less cars. But it gets even worse, and we might need even more cars, depending on what the car sharing system is substituting. Because if it is substituting walking, cycling, or public transportation, then the rebound effect actually gets even bigger. We had all the good intentions. We had a good solution that we thought would help us to achieve those expected sustainability outcomes. But because of rebound effects, we actually have a worse situation in this case than we had before. And then I thought, okay, there might be something that we can do about it. How can we use our knowledge on how to design the best solutions in the world to prevent those rebound effects from happening? Because some estimations today show that rebound effects undermine about 40% of the overall sustainability gains, which means that from these 1.75 trillion euro that Europe is putting on sustainability, we'll be losing 700 billion euro simply because we don't manage to be effective in the design of sustainable solutions that we have.